If you work at a strange pet store, like Dr. Blackwood's Midnight Menagerie, there are 4 rules, 4 unbreakable boundaries, carved not in stone, but in the gloomy echo of this basement and in the millennial gaze of eyes watching you from every cage. 4 absolute commandments whispered by the doctor to the animals themselves. Rules he expects you to learn with your own blood. Because if even one is broken, if the slightest warning is ignored, it's not just negligence. It's an invitation, a crack that opens in the fabric of what we believe is real. And something that doesn't belong to our world slips toward us. Something that has waited decades, centuries, patient and hungry, like an ancestral predator, for an opportunity to reclaim what it considers its own, your identity, your place, your very loyalty. My name is Sarah. I've been here for 3 months, and I already feel the cold of scales and the edge of claws on my own skin, in my own soul. I know it with every fiber of my being, with the persistent smell of formaldehyde and old hides that has adhered to my clothes, to my breath. I know because Marcus, the activist, the animal savior, has broken the most dangerous rule of all, the 4th one, the one that always seemed the most absurd to us, the one the doctor whispered with the most fervor to a 2-headed iguana. And now, the silent ones have begun to shriek. They slide like shadows through the darkest corners of this midnight zoo, a murmur of incomprehensible voices emerging from empty cages, a soft and constant dragging of claws that seems to come from everywhere and nowhere. They seek an opening, any weakness in the fabric of reality that separates us from them. If you hear whispers of ancient pacts, of promises of loyalty in a language you don't understand, or if you feel the strange caress of a cold tail on your ankle when no one is near, it's already too late for you. And for me, I feel the unnatural glow of amber eyes. In the darkness, the certainty that I'm never alone, the certainty that something watches me, stalks me, yearns for me. There are exactly 4 rules, 4 locks, 4 pillars that hold the veil between our world and theirs, preventing the beasts from another world, as the doctor calls them, from reclaiming their ancient domains. 4 commandments forged in fear and observation that, if broken, unleash a horror beyond comprehension. I've been here for 3 months, my entire life dedicated to animals, and I've witnessed it. I've seen people ignore them, seen the contempt in their eyes, the mocking smile of those who believe human logic or compassion can bend what resides in this place. And I've seen, with my own eyes, what happens when those sacred rules are profaned. Once it was rule number 1 about feeding, and a meat delivery driver ended up with a twisted mouth, unable to distinguish the taste of human food. Another time, rule number 2 about the empty cage. And for days, the doctor was absent, his absence accompanied by the penetrating smell of ozone and burned metal emanating from his office. There are always consequences, always a price to pay, a crack that opens in our reality. And now, with the 4th rule broken, with the most reckless and stupid act carried out, I feel its icy breath on my skin, a chill that doesn't come from outside, but from inside my own veins. And I know that what has been contained for so long, what the rules have kept at bay with terrifying fragility, is finally about to break free completely. The animals no longer just watch us. They're making offers, and the doors of this infernal zoo are open. My motivation for enduring this living hell is simple, brutal, and desperate. There's no romanticism in my torment, only the raw reality of a love for animals that borders on obsession. I'm Sarah, a promising veterinary student, until my fascination with comparative anatomy and unconventional experimentation took me too far. My ethically questionable experiments at UC Davis, seeking that animal connection that no one else seemed to understand, earned me expulsion and academic ruin. My reputation was shattered. I feel more comfortable with animals than with people. My skills are appreciated and understood here. Where humans saw monstrosity, I saw beauty. Where they saw suffering, I saw a deeper truth. I feel like just another animal, misunderstood, exiled. I was looking for a second chance, not in the human world that had rejected me, but in a place where my peculiar understanding of animal life would be an advantage, not a curse. A place where my abilities could flourish. And this basement, this midnight zoo, was my only opportunity, my last refuge. It's my final attempt to find a genuine connection, a place where I belong, even if it's among beasts that speak in dreams. This pet store, the Midnight Menagerie, pays an obscene sum, $15,000 a month, tax-free plus housing in a small apartment above the store, a figure that anywhere else would be a scam, but here it's the price of your soul, the toll for your sanity. The only reason the salary is so high is because of the constant, incessant staff turnover, because of sleepless nights plagued by vivid nightmares where animals speak to you, because of the psychological burden that crushes you to the point of madness or catatonia. Here, you're not paid to clean cages. You're paid to be the guardian of a threshold, to walk daily on the edge of sanity, feeling how your own species becomes increasingly strange while theirs becomes increasingly familiar. It's a sacrifice, a voluntary torture, the only path to redeem myself, to find my place, to finally feel at home. The store itself is a tomb of stories, a mausoleum of souls. The neighborhood elders whisper that it was built over an ancient temple to primordial deities, or perhaps over a place where dark rituals were performed to invoke beings from other planes or to forge pacts with nature itself. They say its walls are impregnated with an antiquity so dense you can feel it pressing against your chest when you enter, a sensation of being watched by eyes that have seen the beginning and end of everything. Since I arrived, I've seen 19 employees quit without explanation in the past 2 years. Of them, 9 simply vanished. Their belongings, meticulously arranged in the lockers, their cars parked outside, as if the earth had swallowed them or the ground itself had absorbed them. The rumors aren't discreet. They crawl like plagues through the neighborhood. The Midnight Menagerie is cursed. The animals aren't from this world. An old man with eyes clouded by cataracts, who sold wilted flowers on the corner, once told me that the doctor's animals aren't pets, they're guardians, and sometimes they become one with the collection. I thought it was senile dementia. Now, after 3 months of shadows and animal whispers, I'm not so sure. Then Marcus arrived, young, barely 26 years old, an arrogant smile that hid deep insecurity and the gleam of moral indignation in his eyes. A fresh animal rights activist with a thesis on the exploitation of exotic species in illegal trade, which sounded like cheap pseudoscience to me. He proclaimed himself a liberator, a charlatan with blind confidence in his own righteousness and an insatiable thirst for justice. He mocked the stories, the rules, the very idea that there existed something that couldn't be quantified by animal suffering or rationalized by mistreatment. It's all suggestion, Sarah, effective confinement, fear, and paranoia. A weak mind creates its own cages, and this place is a perfect breeding ground for animal exploitation, a hell for creatures that should be free. His voice, often tinged with fanatic zeal, resonated with an arrogance that made the hair on my neck stand up. He came looking for evidence for his next denunciation, for his social media channel, his springboard to fame. He wanted to unmask the doctor, expose what he considered a cruel farce. He didn't see the real danger, only an opportunity for his moral crusade, his oversized ego. And then there's Dr. Blackwood. His face is a map of deep wrinkles, each line a story of silent pacts, each furrow a scar from what he has witnessed. His eyes, of a blue so deep it seems to absorb light, have seen too much in anatomy and animal behavior, too much time, reflecting the fatigue of millennia of observation. He always wears a small carved bone amulet, which he rubs every time an animal shrieks anomalously. His voice has a strange echo, not as if it came from far away, but as if it emerged from the ground itself, from the bowels of the earth. It was he who received me, his words heavy with an almost mystical solemnity, each warning a dull blow to the soul. "Here we're not animal caretakers, Sarah," he told me on our first night, moonlight filtering weakly through a skylight in the ceiling that shouldn't exist. "We're guardians, and some things are better left trapped or sleeping. Much, much better." His resignation was palpable, that of someone who has accepted his destiny and the horror it entails of one who knows the battle is lost before it begins, but fights it anyway. He is the anchor that prevents this place from tearing apart completely, his presence a weak beacon in the immense darkness. The doctor whispered them to me, not to me, but to the animals. One night, I found him in the basement, his eyes bright in the gloom, talking to a rare feline with mottled skin that seemed made of shadows. His words were for the creature, but I absorbed them, burned them into my mind. They were warnings engraved in my memory, more than simple rules. The rule of altered diet, direct and clear. Never feed an animal meat that isn't from its species. Diet changes can alter its essence. Each creature has its specific diet, its particular resonance. Any deviation is a transgression of its being. If a predator of the night tastes light, or a being of light tastes darkness, the balance breaks, and what emerges is not what it was. The doctor stopped me abruptly once, barely a day after my arrival, when I tried to give a portion of sausage to a fruit bat that seemed too thin. His gaze was like an icy knife. "Its essence must not be altered," he murmured, and the bat in its cage seemed to tremble, as if it had understood the warning. The rule of the empty cage, cryptic and with multiple conditions. Between 3 and 3:30 in the morning, if an animal's cage is open and empty, don't try to search for it. Instead, place a personal object of great sentimental value in the center of the cage and close the door. It must not be your blood nor your hair. It's not a search, it's an offering. The animal will return to its cage with its gift, but not with its complete essence, but with a portion of what left the cage. The next day, the object will disappear and the animal will be there, but its gaze will be deeper, more ancient. It will be a transaction, a small debt paid. I saw the doctor do it one night. A multicolored chameleon, which had escaped from its cage, didn't appear anywhere. At 3:15, the doctor placed an old silver pocket watch he always carried with him in the cage, closed it, and sat down to wait. The next morning, the watch had disappeared and the chameleon was back, but its eyes were bottomless wells reflecting millennial wisdom. The rule of forbidden dialogue contradicts common sense and is crucial. If an animal speaks to you, do not respond. Ignore it. Under no circumstances try to establish dialogue with it, not out of curiosity, not out of compassion, not to understand. Its voice is not its own. It's an imitation, a mockery, a trap. Any word you direct to it is an invitation to a silent pact, to a connection you can't break. And once its voice traps you, its loyalty is not yours. It's a farce, an invisible chain. One day, a macaw with iridescent feathers, with eyes of intense yellow, called me by my name. "Sarah, aren't you alone?" it asked with a voice that was a perfect replica of mine. I froze. The doctor looked at me with contained fury. "Never," he hissed, his face contorted. Its voice is an echo that sticks to the soul. Don't give it yours. The rule of the pact, the most dangerous and incomprehensible, the point of no return. If an animal offers you a pact, an alliance, a promise of loyalty, do not accept. No matter how seductive it may be, don't accept its gift. Don't touch its offering. Its loyalty is not yours. It's a loan, and it always charges unpayable interest. If an animal extends a paw, a claw, a wing to you, or whispers a promise of companionship and power, and you feel a tug in your heart, a desire to accept, resist with all your strength. Because by accepting, you're not gaining an ally. You're losing your will, your essence, and your place in this world. You'll become an extension, an instrument of its will, another piece of this collection. It will be its loyalty, not yours, that possesses you. This rule chilled my blood. A pact with an animal? It seemed like madness, a fantasy of twisted fairy tales. Marcus, with his skepticism, heard it with a mocking laugh. Pacts with animals. It's the most absurd thing I've ever heard in my life. It's pure nonsense. It's a zoo, not an occult temple. The doctor only sighed, his eyes fixed on the darkness beyond the light bulb. That offer is not for your benefit. It's for its purpose. And if you accept it, the entire map of your existence changes, and what resides there will reclaim you. The first significant violation occurred barely a week after Marcus joined the staff, as an infiltrated activist with the clear mission of saving the animals. It was a Monday night. The sky covered with low gray clouds that gave an oppressive atmosphere to the basement. Marcus, with his arrogance intact and his blind faith in animal justice, had decided that the fruit bat, the same one the doctor had protected from my sausage, was suffering from malnutrition. "Look, Sarah, it's so thin. They're clearly not giving it proper food. It's abuse," he told me, his eyes shining with indignation. Ignoring my warnings about the animal's specific diet, Marcus took a piece of lean meat from his sandwich, which he had smuggled in, and offered it to the bat, which devoured it with unusual avidity. It was a direct violation of rule number 1, feeding an animal meat that wasn't from its species. Not even a minute had passed when the bat's cage distorted, the metal seemed to twist in on itself, and the air in the store became thick and hot, then icy, leaving a frozen mist that turned each exhalation into a cloud of fog. A chorus of discordant screeches filled the basement, coming not just from the bat, but from all the cages, from the walls, from the floor itself, a sharp buzzing that pierced the ears and made you feel dizzy. And that smell, an unmistakable and sickly sweet stench of rotting fruit and fresh blood, permeated every corner of the building. The bat, previously famished, now moved with unnatural agility, its eyes glowing with malignant intelligence. I felt a sudden tug in my chest, a visceral connection with the bat, but accompanied by a cold indifference toward everything else. I ran toward the cage, my heart beating in my temples like a war drum. Marcus was there, pale, his indignation blurred by panic, his eyes fixed on the bat. The animal, with a voice that was a distortion of a human murmur, seemed to tell him something Marcus didn't understand, but which gave him chills. "It can't be. It's just an animal." He could barely mutter, his voice strangled by fear. The smell, the temperature. "Sarah, what's happening?" I tried to apply the containment protocols I had learned by observing the doctor, using a series of amulets and dried herbs that the doctor placed at thresholds. The instant I placed the last herb, the smell dissipated, the temperature normalized, and the screeches ceased abruptly, as if nothing had happened. The bat returned to its lethargy, although its eyes continued to glow. Marcus collapsed against the wall, breathing with difficulty, his body visibly trembling. "It was shock, Sarah, adrenaline." The bat was stressed. "Everything has a scientific explanation." He was convincing himself, his rational mind struggling to impose itself over tangible horror, but I saw the uncontrollable trembling in his hands, the shadow of doubt and terror in his eyes. He had seen something, and what he saw had scratched his armor of skepticism. The following weeks were a slow and progressive torment. Marcus, although visibly frightened and with the gleam of his arrogance dimmed, continued seeking rational explanations for each incident. His skepticism was armor he refused to remove, but the cracks now were deep and visible. In the third week, during my night shift, the multicolored chameleon, the one the doctor had transacted with his pocket watch, escaped from its cage, leaving the door open. It was 3:15 in the morning. The doctor wasn't there. I knew rule number 2, don't search for it, but leave a sentimental offering. But Marcus, upon discovering the empty cage, saw only the opportunity for a rescue. Convinced that the chameleon had escaped of its own will seeking freedom, and that the animal needed help to survive outside its cage, he began searching frantically through the basement, calling its name insistently. "Here, little buddy, come on, I'll get you out of here." The result was immediate and terrifying. The entire basement groaned. The shadows lengthened and moved with their own intelligence, hiding objects, distorting familiar shapes into fleeting monsters that disappeared when you blinked. The smell of rotting fruit and wet hides became constant, so penetrating it adhered to clothes, to skin, especially in the corners where Marcus searched. The screeches and hisses we had heard before, weak and distant, were now clear, enveloping whispers that vibrated in the air like a macabre chorus. They were voices of exotic animals calling Marcus by name, promising him refuge, offering him his side of the collection. But their words were incomplete, fragmented, like echoes of forgotten languages. Marcus swore he heard his own name, spoken by voices of reptiles, birds, and mammals, repeating it over and over from the walls, from the ceiling, from beneath his feet, whispered directly in his ear. "Marcus, Marcus, come with us. Marcus, you're one of ours." He was going mad, his rational mind crumbling before impossibility. I found him huddled in a corner, covering his ears, his eyes bloodshot. "They can't know my name. How do they know it? What are they offering me? It's an illusion." That was his most recurring question, the one that consumed him. The phenomena escalated with terrifying progression. The animal's offers became clearer, more tempting. The doctor, when he returned the next day, only sighed upon learning of Marcus's violation. Now the collection has taken root in him. Now he's one of them. My internal struggle was constant, a battlefield in my own mind. Guilt was eating me alive. Should I have reported Marcus? Should I have tied him up to prevent his foolishness? Each day that passed, my own connection with the basement animals became deeper, but also more disturbing. I felt their emotions, their longings, their dark thoughts. I was beginning to see the logic of their rules, of their existence in this place. But my own humanity was beginning to blur. The basement was becoming a darker, more alive, more thirsty place. I noticed that the animals, which before seemed drowsy, now watched me constantly, their eyes fixed, following each of my movements with chilling intelligence. They began speaking to me not like the macaw, but telepathically, with images and feelings that embedded directly in my mind. "Your place is here, Sarah," whispered a gigantic hairy spider from its terrarium, its 8 eyes bright like dead stars. "You're one of us." One night, I found Marcus in the middle of the basement, with glassy eyes, caressing the cage of a spider monkey that wouldn't stop laughing. It told me, the monkey told me, that true freedom is belonging, that there's a pact that can give me all the power I need to free them all, that it only wants my loyalty, he babbled, his cold fingers on the ancestral metal. At that moment, I felt cold, small hands clinging to my ankles, invisible, dragging me with insidious force toward the cage of a black mamba, where a smell of bitter almonds invited me. My sleep had become a torment of fragmented images, myself, with animal eyes, speaking to an invisible friend, my voice a distant echo. Desperation mixed with pure terror, a toxic cocktail that kept me awake, vigilant, on the edge of collapse. I knew Marcus had broken rule number 3 about forbidden dialogue by responding to the monkey's offer. He had established a connection that shouldn't exist. And I knew the worst was yet to come, that Marcus had unleashed a force that neither he nor his justice could understand. The night Marcus broke the 4th rule, the pact rule, was a blood moon night, its reddish glow filtering through the basement skylight, tinting everything an ominous color. The atmosphere was electric, charged with ancestral expectation. The animals were restless, whispering, moving in their cages with palpable urgency. There was an albino Burmese python, immense, with scales that shone like mother of pearl and red eyes that looked like living embers. The doctor had always kept it in the largest cage, the deepest in the basement, almost a room. Marcus, with a mixture of fanaticism and the conviction that it was the most oppressed and powerful animal, decided he would free it. He believed this serpent, with its antiquity, held the key to his crusade. Ignoring my pleas, my desperate screams, my hands trying to stop him, Marcus approached the python's cage. The serpent, with slow and majestic movements, stuck out its head, its eyes fixed on Marcus, and it spoke to him, not with a human voice, but with a vibration that resonated directly in his mind, a promise of power, of understanding, of an unbreakable alliance, if he accepted its gift, an offering of loyalty. Marcus, blinded by his fervor, extended his hand toward the python. I free you. I give you my loyalty. Join me, and we'll free them all, he murmured, his face contorted in a grimace of self-proclaimed heroism. The precise instant his fingers touched the cold mother-of-pearl scale of the python, an explosion of psychic energy, of pure spectral force, pierced through the store. It was total, deafening, chaotic. It wasn't a sound, but an expansive wave of horror that knocked me to the floor. All the animals' cages vibrated with fury. The screeches, the hisses, the roars merged into a deafening chorus. The lights flickered violently, then went out completely, plunging us into absolute darkness, so dense it choked you, broken only by green and purple flashes of spectral energy that danced like cursed flames in the air. The smell of formaldehyde and old hides became so dense, so nauseating, it almost suffocated me. It was the breath of corruption, the smell of a fulfilled pact. Marcus's screams were cut off abruptly. They didn't end, but coiled into a grotesque loop. In the darkness, I heard him, that unmistakable sound of flesh and bone, twisting, breaking, stretching. I turned on my flashlight. My hands trembled so much the beam of light danced uncontrollably. Marcus was there, next to the python, which now wrapped around him with unnatural possessiveness. But it wasn't Marcus. His body had transformed. His skin had become scaly, his limbs had lengthened and twisted, and his eyes, once full of indignation, were now red and empty pits, reptilian. It wasn't Marcus. It was a grotesque creature, half man, half serpent. His loyalty wasn't his own, but the python's, the collection's. His mouth opened, not to scream, but to emit a guttural hiss, a promise of loyalty that wasn't his, but his new master's. He had accepted the pact, and now he was part of the collection, a guardian, but one who no longer fought for freedom. Now he fought for his new master's will. The entire store convulsed, like a living being wounded to death. I felt the touch of countless cold claws on my skin, scratching me, clinging, sucking my warmth. I heard whispers of pacts and promises that sounded like broken glass, like the music of a rusty carousel in an abandoned circus. I clung to the rules, to the protocols, to the doctor's teachings, like a castaway to a piece of wood in a raging sea of terror. I ran through the cages, placing the doctor's amulets, trying to restore a semblance of order, a weak dike against the tide of the supernatural. But I knew it was useless. The breach was already open, the pact consummated. Marcus had guaranteed that. And we were now in their world, in their collection. Dr. Blackwood appeared from among the dancing shadows of the basement, his face paler than usual, almost transparent in the erratic light of my flashlight. His deep eyes, now more than ever, seemed like two wells filled with ancestral sadness and eternal resignation. He held the carved bone amulet pressed against his chest with a force that whitened his knuckles. The chorus of animal screams now wasn't chaos, but a symphony of pleas and agreements, a guttural moan that seemed to emerge from a collective throat. "You're late, Sarah," he said, his voice with that deep echo that resonated from the ground itself. "I knew this would happen. It always happens. It's the cycle." He sat heavily on a stool covered with hides, as if the weight of centuries fell on him, crushing him. This store isn't a zoo for the living, daughter. It was built on a pact, an ancient pact, forged by a brotherhood of alchemists and dark zoologists who, seeking immortality and absolute knowledge of animal life, invoked and bound primordial entities to these creatures. Entities that don't seek souls in the traditional sense, but loyalty and places where they can manifest, where they can exist fully in our world. The animals are their anchors, their vessels. This store is a nexus, a purgatory where the line between here and there is so thin, so porous, it barely exists. The rules are containment protocols, rites to prevent the beasts from another world from breaking free completely and reclaiming humans' place. My heart stopped. A cold much deeper than the basements invaded me. My expulsion, my experiments. The words came out in a thread of voice, my own identity wavering. Dr. Blackwood looked at me, his eyes full of terrible pity, the pity of the executioner to the condemned. Your expulsion from university, your fascination with unethical experimentation, your obsessive love for animals. It wasn't an accident, Sarah. It was a connection, a resonance with the collection. Your great-grandmother Eleanor was one of those alchemists. She was one of those who helped forge the first packs. Your family wasn't just linked to this store from the beginning. Your talent is a manifestation of its closeness to anomalies. It's as if your soul were constantly on the verge of being reclaimed, of becoming part of the collection. That's why you need them so much near you, why your presence soothes them, because you're an anchor for them on our side of reality. You're the last of your lineage who can close the breach or succumb to it. The truth hit me with the force of lightning, stripped me of all illusion. Not only was my life a farce, but I myself had been a puppet, drawn by my desperation to the wolf's mouth, to the web woven by my own ancestors. This store wasn't a job, it was penance, a trap designed for the only family that could repair the damage or complete its destruction. My own veins screamed with echoes of family betrayal. The horror was much more intimate, much more personal than I had ever imagined. The doctor stood up, his form fading, his eyes glowing with strange peace. Now, the collection is yours, Sarah. The cycle continues. Your destiny has reclaimed you. The loyalty isn't yours. Now it's theirs. And with a last sigh, he dissolved into the air, leaving only the carved bone amulet on the stool. Dawn came, but it brought no light to my soul, only the gloom of a new reality. Marcus had gone, vanished without a trace, only the memory of his hollow skepticism and his twisted form resonating like a reptilian echo in the basement corners. Dr. Blackwood had also gone, or had become something else, leaving the unbearable weight of the store, the rules, and the family curse on my shoulders. Now, every night, I find myself in the hallways full of cages, eyes fixed on the animals that watch me, their silence only broken by the tick-tock of an ancestral clock that marks 3 and 3:30. The smell of formaldehyde and old hides has become as familiar as my own, a tomb stench that has adhered to my skin, my clothes, my very soul. I feel the constant touch of countless cold claws on my skin, on my arms, on my chest, as if they were trying to suck the life out of me, steal my warmth. I hear their whispers, now not just my name, but fragmented phrases Marcus used to say, "It's abuse. We must free them." and occasionally the longing for a connection I thought was mine, mixing with the chorus of loyalty promises. I'm becoming part of the collection, a guardian chained to its endless cycle, to its insatiable hunger. My skin has become paler, my eyes have acquired a deep blue tint, similar to Dr. Blackwood's, reflecting the antiquity they have witnessed. My own movements sometimes sound like the dragging of scales, inverting the natural order as if time itself dragged me toward a forgotten pact. I know it's a slow, subtle, but unstoppable transformation. I'm becoming one of the beasts from another world. I'm losing my own place in this world. My identity dissolves little by little, consumed by the voices, by the cold touches, by the smell of corruption. And on the darkest nights, in the deepest corners of my mind, my own voice joins the animal's chorus. Closer and closer, clearer and clearer. I, my motivation, my only light, am approaching, dragged by the same curse that consumes me. My search for connection wasn't a choice, it was a condemnation. It was living proof that my family, for generations, had been predestined to this store, to this forced redemption at the cost of their souls. And now, I, Sarah, am next. The next to watch, the next to transform, the next to join the pact. Because the Midnight Menagerie never releases its guardians. It only converts them into part of its eternal torment until nothing remains of what they once were, only loyalty. If you work at a strange pet store, carefully review the unofficial manuals of your workplace, because the most important rules are never written in official documents. Often, they're transmitted in whispers or learned with the icy breath of fear that emanates from every cage. In the next video, I'm going to take you into the digital realm where players aren't always human, and some have been logged in since before the game even existed. Imagine playing an online game where NPCs whisper your real name, where certain players know things about your life they should never know, and where opening the wrong private message can download something far worse than a virus. Something that's been waiting decades to find a door between the virtual world and reality. But here's what really keeps me awake at night. How many online games have you played where you felt like you were being watched through the screen? How many times have you received friend requests from accounts with no profile information? If you want to discover the truth behind these digital anomalies and understand why certain servers exist in locations that don't appear on any map, you need to subscribe to this channel now. Hit that red subscribe button like your digital soul depends on it. Because after what you're going to see in the next video, you'll understand that maybe it really does. And don't forget to activate the notification bell, because these stories arrive when the servers are quietest, when the rules between reality and virtuality become dangerously thin.